Next on Brute Force, the history of weapons at war. They spring from the sky, anywhere, anytime. They're airborne assault, infantrymen with wings. Their mission, to quickly deploy troops and supplies behind enemy lines. From the gliders of World War II to the birth of air mobility in Vietnam, they're the most dramatic military phenomena of our time. They're airborne assault all the way. Next on Brute Force, the history of weapons at war.
At the height of the American Revolution, Benjamin Franklin envisioned a new form of warfare where battle lines were not necessarily limited to the battleground. Where is the prince, he asked, who can afford to defend his country from 10,000 men descending from the clouds? But Franklin's sky soldiers had to wait for the advent of the airplane and the parachute. Today, another generation of warriors trains to take the ultimate step, expand the battlefield of the infantryman into the third dimension, and become, in a word, airborne.
All right, airborne, determine your direction and drift and pull at 2 risers Smith into the opposite direction of drift. Keep your feet and knees together. Keep your feet and knees together. Your head and eyes are on the horizon. You're looking good, airborne. You're looking good.
Motivation, aggressiveness, discipline, and the fortitude to never say die. That's what it takes to be an airborne soldier.
Take that, a bitch. Being airborne is a honor, and it's not a right. You have to earn it. And if you can't earn it, then you don't need to be here. There's 1,000 legs out there in the world, but there's only very few parachuters. The United States Army Airborne School is probably one of the best schools the Army has to offer. It's a very demanding challenge to pass this course.
Hey, hey, I-do. Hey, hey, we off the war, we ready to go. We're off the war, we're ready to go. We're standing tall, we're looking good. Standing tall, we're looking good. We ought to be in Hollywood. We ought to be in Hollywood.
The training we give them here is not for their mind, it's for their body, because when you jump out of an aircraft, your mind isn't in control of you, your body is.
All right, pin down, pin down. Now clear the platform. Spread a leg.
Everyone here is a volunteer. Officers and enlisted alike are put through a rigorous 3-week training program, starting with learning what to do when you hit the ground.
They need to absorb the training that we do give them. They need to be able to do things automatically. Your body needs to know how to react to certain things.
Prepare to drag. Drag. Pull it. Pull the jumper. Pull it.
In the second week, soldiers learn the correct way to exit a plane by jumping from a mock aircraft door.
Get your feet together, so you're going to walk out normal. Just walk normal. Hook him up, hook him up, hook him up. Let's go.
Here at the 34th Retire, we're teaching people how to exit the aircraft and control their body from the time they exit the aircraft. Keep a good tight body position and to control their descent while they're descending. Here you need courage, strength, and training, discipline. If you don't have that, you're not going to make it to the airborne school.
Attention to detail breeds confidence in the equipment. The better they know the equipment and the better trained they are, even the most minute things can cause them their lives.
Yet the life of a paratrooper doesn't rest solely on his keen skills to react well in combat situations, but also on the guarantee that his parachute will open. That responsibility rests in the hands of the parachute rigger.
There's no room for mistakes, no matter how small, in this field, because these are life support systems. A person's life depends upon this. It could be yours, it could be mine, someone I don't even know. This is my job, to save lives. That's what a parachute rigger does. Packing 25 a day, 30 a day, whatever. That's 25 and 30 lives, human lives. It's not just material. It's the man and the woman behind it. You have to have specific scores on your armed surfaces rotational aptitude battery in order to be intelligent enough to be a parachute rigger. because you have to be a logistician, a mathematician, and a comedian all at the same time. Part-time philosopher, just to keep sane. Now, it may look like we're manhandling this parachute, but in actuality, once you get that radial seam fall together to form the air channel, you can kick this parachute around and the air channel's still going to be there. This chute will open. I'll jump it myself. I'll jump any chute I pack or any of my fellow riggers pack. Hey, Air Force gets you up, but we get you down on the ground safely.
The moment of truth is now upon these soldiers as they complete their final week of airborne training. During the course of this week, they'll make 5 jumps from 1,250 feet. 10% won't make the grade.
Fire up, Sergeant, airborne.
I think the reality of the whole situation hits everyone at different times. Some people were starting to feel it walking on the aircraft. Walked out to the plane, we're all nervous and edgy. When we get in the plane takes off and relax a little bit more. And they first take off, they go 10 minutes, and that tell you to stand up and everything. Well, this is real. You're actually going to jump out of a plane. It's not natural to jump out of a plane. For me, it was when the door opened, you hear the wind. From one second to the next, it goes from a roar to just absolute silence.
You prepare and you prepare and you prepare. Coming out of the 34-foot tower, you practice your form, you practice your count. When you leap out to the aircraft and you got your form and you start counting, that wind snatches you and you're really surprised that you're moving, you end up going sideways before the chute opens. But it's still, when you feel the chute open, it's a good feeling.
Each year, nearly 24,000 soldiers earn the distinguished Silver Airborne Pin. They are infantrymen with wings, ready to wage war from the sky.
When they come here, we instill discipline in them, and esprit de corps, and morality, and try to revamp their way of thinking and their way of life, so they can carry on from here into their outfits and show that out to everybody else. See, I'm airborne, see what I can do. Can you do the same?
You're not a leg no more, you're a paratrooper. Airborne. Airborne.
Thank you, First Sergeant.
First parachutes really operated about the time of the first balloons back in the 18th century, but the modern parachutes operating with airplanes were somewhat primitive when they began. They were stuffed in canisters that were affixed to the airplane. Parachutists wore the harness and left from the airplane, and the parachute was opened by a static line. It was many years later before they began using ripcords as we understand them today.
Initially, the only people willing to trust the parachutes were the people who invented them. But the thrill of jumping from planes quickly caught on. By 1918, under General Billy Mitchell, the idea of employing sky soldiers started to take form. But it wasn't until 1940, with the shock of the German airborne forces capturing Belgium's Fort Eben-Emael and the neutralization of Holland, did the United States begin training paratroopers in earnest at Fort Benning, Georgia.
I went into the parachute troops in the early summer of 1942. And back then, the training was extremely rigorous. You ran 5 miles, you did push-ups, you did everything. The first week was more familiarization with how you jumped and so forth and how you packed the parachute. You had to pack your own parachute. Then the second week, you went on some of the towers and jumped and got the posture that you used and so forth in coming out. Then the third week, we went up into the towers at Fort Benning, which were 250 feet high. You first came down with a controlled drop, sitting in a seat. And then you went where they dropped you free and you floated down the 250 feet in a parachute. Then the fourth week was graduation week, and that's when you had to jump from an airplane. I've never seen people so highly motivated as these people were to jump as I was. Every chute was hitched to your backpacker, and you stood up and counted off and so forth, and you checked out the chute of the man in front of you to make sure everything was right. And there was a cable that ran down through the center of the plane, and you hooked up your static line up there, and then they say stand in the door. And then when you got over the drop zone, the pilot would put the green light on, and out you would go when you jumped.
We had what we called a static line, which was the thing that opened your chute up after you had gotten a certain distance out of the plane. All of a sudden you get a like that, and it feels like someone has just jerked your chain, and it's really a very exciting experience.
It was from these first soldiers who freely volunteered to become paratroopers that the mystique of the airborne evolved. They had an esprit de corps second to none. Their motto then and now, all the way.
The airborne soldier, he had to be a little bit different. He had to be a completely different breed, or he wouldn't volunteer to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. I will say, of course, that there is a big difference between the airborne infantryman and the regular infantryman. The regular infantrymen, they have quite a bond between them. They served side by side and went through the same kind of hell that we did. But the airborne trooper always seemed to have a little more spirit. He was a little more proud than anybody else.
Airborne assault was first successfully used by the Germans during their blitzkrieg across the Low Countries in the early 1940s. Their assaults were unpredictable, fast, and spectacular.
The Germans were fortunate in their paratroops that they had a brilliant leader, General Karl Student, and that they were also integrated fully into the Army's plans, just as the artillery were or supply was, so that a parachute operation was tactically integrated into their operations and could be carried off with great precision. It was very important to the Germans early in the war and scored some of the most notable successes.
But the tide turned against the Germans when the overwhelming Allied armies invaded Normandy on June 6, 1944.
We had trained for this for so long and made so many practice jumps getting ready for it that everything we did was mostly automatic.
No operation in military history has ever been so thoroughly thought out as the invasion of German-occupied France. Operation Overlord involved an amphibious attack from the sea and an airborne assault designed to destroy enemy reinforcements.
We were at the airstrip at Folkestone, England, for a week before the jump, and the intelligence section had set up a sand table with the layout of the land where we were supposed to go. The bridges that we were supposed to blow up were all on there. So we went through that as many times as you could possibly go.
The ideal situation for a paratroop force is to land on a bridge or a road network where the enemy is not there in force, and you can set up a defensive perimeter that can subsequently can be relieved.
The operation, involving some 13,000 troops from the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions, was originally set for June 4th, but bad weather conditions kept them in England. For 2 days, airborne troops sat nervously waiting for D-Day. Finally, word came. The invasion was on.
We started packing our equipment and getting ready, and it was really serious then. In the combat, you carry everything that you can possibly find that might help you on the ground. I had my rifle, which was an M1 rifle, the regular infantry rifle. I had the landmine. I had some hand grenades, my water, and a first aid kit. I'm guessing I weighed close to 300 pounds, maybe even more, going into the airplane. I had to be pushed up the steps to get in, and I was willing to go. There was just too much to get up those steps with.
The Douglas C-47 was used to carry paratroopers and to tow glider planes into combat. With a thunderous roar, over 1,000 Allied planes swept over the English Channel.
It was dark. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. As we were going across the channel, we could look out of the airplane and see all of the ships in the channel down there, and it was unbelievable. I don't think anyone had any idea of how many people were involved in this invasion. And as we flew over the coast of Normandy, the flak started coming up from the German anti-aircraft installation. I don't know how to describe the fear. It wasn't complete terror, but I knew that I was in danger, and
I was well aware of that, and when I got to the ground, I was going to do everything I could to preserve this body of mine and do what I was supposed to do. On the way down in the jump into Normandy, I checked to make sure my chute was open properly. To guide the parachute, if you wanted to go to the right, you just pulled up on the risers on the right-hand side. The risers are the part that goes from your body up to the parachute. And to go forward, you'd pull the ones in the front. And to go back, you could pull the ones in the back or to the left. The jump wasn't very high, but it seemed forever to get to the ground. And I saw these tracers coming up at me, and they were very close because they went through this gas mask on my side. And I would raise my feet up because I thought they were going to shoot my feet off. I landed in the floodwaters of the river, and I was a little over waist deep. I got out of my parachute. I surprised myself. I was very calm and unbuckled the chute and got it off. We started to go across the road, and the Germans were on the other side of the road, and we had quite a long firefight there with them. And the Germans started dropping mortar shells into this field that we were in. We were there 5 days, and we couldn't cross the road. The Germans were down there with machine guns. Every time we'd move out that direction, they would open up with these machine guns. We were running low on ammunition, so we send people as far as they can go looking for some of our men who had been killed to get the ammunition from them. We knew that the beach troops were getting closer because we could hear the firing coming towards us. I think everybody had the same feeling. It was one of complete frustration because we didn't have the equipment or the number of men that we needed to break through the German lines and get back with our people.
The difficulty that all paratroopers encountered is that once they were on the ground, unless they were linked up rapidly, then they either had to be resupplied, reinforced, or extricated.
I figured, well, that was going to be it. There was no way for us to get out of there. And that was one of the times when I had a real strange feeling. In my hometown, there's a monument on the square in the center of town. And every year on Memorial Day, they put up the names of all of them who were killed in World War I. I could see my name on there as one of the ones from World War II.
For O.B. Hill, the loss of nearly half of the American airborne force became a reminder of the reality of war.
The thought that I had then was the wish that this would never happen again.
On February 16, 1945, the 503rd Parachute Infantry Regiment stormed the Rock, the heavily defended Japanese fortress at Corregidor.
I suppose historic is about as good a word as any to describe what happened that day.
Corregidor is something that came after Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor was bad enough, but this was added on to Pearl Harbor, and believe me, it was something that every American wanted to get straightened out. So we were thrilled that we were chosen, and I am absolutely certain we were chosen by MacArthur himself to go in there.
Corregidor is a little island that lies in the mouth of Manila Bay, and as such has historically controlled the entrance to Manila.
We were preparing, and we'd been doing a lot of practicing jump mastering, which is the art of jumping out of the plane at the right time so you'll hit the jump field where you're supposed to hit it. The platoon that I had was the mortar platoon. And our mission really was to support the company with mortar fire. A mortar is a weapon that goes up in the air and it comes straight down. So it's good to fire on gullies on the other side of hills. We carried the mortar plate and the 60-millimeter mortar tubes and the ammunition down. So it's some of the companies jumped with bundles, but we carried it down. The flying to Corregidor took some time. It's very boring. And those planes, C-47s, you're sitting on the tin seats. It gets a little hard after a while, and it's very noisy in there, and you can speak to one another, but you almost have to shout. And so there isn't much you can do. You kind of sit around and smoke. And I'm sure a lot of us were thinking, geez, what's going to happen when we get there?
No próximo programa, a Batalha de Corregidor.